Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that brings you inspiration, transformation, and leadership. We're helping you connect the dots, see the blind spots, and get unstuck so you can go out and create more leads, more sales, more profitability. More importantly, so you can go out and have a bigger impact, have a bigger reach, and make a bigger difference. Is that what you want? If that's what you want, you are going to love today's guest expert. Now, before I tell you about today's guest expert, the question I have for you, what would it take for you? What would it mean for you if you could apply one simple strategy that that you could model from our guest expert today to get you in front of some of the highest value people in the world, maybe even billionaires, maybe even directors of the biggest companies, household names that you know of? Would you want to know about that? Well, that's just one of dozens of things we're going to talk about with today's expert. Now, before we roll, our show today is sponsored by Breakthrough 3X. If you're struggling to get clients on a daily basis, maybe you find yourself stuck in the business versus on it, stuck in the day-to-day of still trying to create all the revenue and create all the sales, there is a solution. We've set up an opportunity for you to get a full business review. It's like a diagnosis for your marketing and sales system. When you have a better sales and marketing system, you can create predictable revenue daily. This business review is geared to pinpoint the gaps, the hidden blind spots, the roadblocks, and a whole lot more to help you identify where are you, where do you want to go, how are you going to get there. And we'll give you a game plan that'll bring you clarity, confidence, and direction so you can get more clients daily and get out of the day-to-day. If you're looking for something like that, it's real simple. Go to breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com and set up your 100% free consultation business review. That's your diagnosis to better business. Anyway, today's guest expert, let me just share a little bit about him. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's also a philanthropist. He's the co-founder of a company called Akamai Technologies. He's an active venture investor. You're going to learn more about that. He's the managing partner of Jump Investors. He's the soon-to-be best-selling author of a book called Bliss, an amazing podcast called In Search of Excellence. We're going to talk about all of these things, and he can help you understand how to be able to go out and grow your business with a lot less stress. His name is Randall Kaplan. Randy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Dan, great to have you. I'm doing phenomenally well today. Couldn't be better.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive right into it. I've done a lot of research and listened to a bunch of interviews, read a lot of stuff that that's out there about you. You have this story about something called 300 letters that I found fascinating. Now, we're both from Detroit, right? You grew up on the right side of Detroit. I was on the wrong side.
Okay.
You went to U of M, so we got that connection going as well. And for me, why that story connects with me so much, number one, is the idea of generating business and unique out-of-the-box ways to do it. But for me, when I was in high school, I had a situation where I was, to a degree, I won't go into the whole backstory, but I was forced to have to market myself. And I was a 16-year-old kid basically being told, if you want to go play college ball, you're going to have to do it yourself. And so I took this approach that, when I heard your story about 300 letters and what you did, I was like, oh my gosh, he's just done it at a bigger level. Yeah, I got offers from places like Clemson and Central Michigan and all these other fascinating places before my injuries. But you went to, and you're going to share the story, I hope, but could you tell us about the 300 letter concept and why you did it and what we can learn from it?
Sure. Well, I think we should just take a step back for a minute and start thinking about what's our end goal when we're trying to approach somebody and get a meeting and how we go about doing that. And as an entrepreneur, I think it's very important to try to do things a little differently than just send a note. Hi, I'm Randy, or hi, I'm Dan. I'd love to meet with you. Please meet with me. And I think there's different ways and times in your life on how to approach this. One is reactively. So I was 23 years old when I graduated law school. I moved to LA. I had a great job. I lost my job 5.5 weeks after I moved here. It was a bad legal climate. Firms were firing people. I was laid off. I hadn't even passed the bar exam yet, which was coming. I took the exam in the summer. The results were coming a month later. I got called into the office of my law firm and say, hey, see you later. I actually got an email from the librarian of the firm the main office in Chicago, please turn in your library books today before you leave. That's how I found out I was being let go. And that was a tough day. And what I did at that point is I had $3,000 in the bank. My rent was $1,200 a month. And I thought, boy, I need to find a job quickly. And no one was hiring. So I contacted Northwestern Law School, and they sent me a list of all of the alumni in Los Angeles. So what I did there is I took a list. I don't know, there were 500 or so people. And I wrote letters and I contacted all of those people, tried to contact all those people. A very small handful responded. One in particular did, a guy named Sandra Schwartz, who worked at Columbia TriStar Pictures. Not only did he respond, by the way, he took a lot of interest and care in me. You really find out who your friends are when you're down. And I didn't have any friends when I moved to Los Angeles. I had a friend moving here from college, but that required me to write a lot of letters. And I had written a lot of letters in law school as well to get a summer job or even a first year job, because the law firms, they'll come recruit you between your second and your third year. But I wrote a lot of letters looking for that job in law school. Then I wrote a lot of letters looking for a job to pay my rent. And I was very fortunate to be able to get a job. And I was getting a job in a career I didn't really want, but it was a means to an end for me. I was a lawyer. I didn't like law school. I never want to be a lawyer. I was always interested in business, but I liked the graduate degree. I thought that'd be helpful. So after losing my first job and then driving to Orange County from Los Angeles, 3 hours a day there and back, working 80 hours a week or more, I thought, I really don't want to do this drive anymore. And I went to the managing partner of the law firm where I was working, the downtown office, and said, I want to move. And he said, no, we need you to move. And I said, I'm not doing that. I was not happy. And I was now looking for my third job, my first year, once I had graduated. And I had done very well in school. So I thought, all right, you work hard, things are going to go well for you, and things were not going well for me. So looking for your third job your first year is definitely not recommended, not the way to go. And he said, you got to move down here to Costa Mesa, or you got to leave. So I was now looking for my third job. I found a great job with a Chicago-based firm. And I ended up working there for 18 months, 20 months approximately. But I started looking for my way out from that point on. I didn't want to be a lawyer. My career wasn't going well. So you start thinking, okay, what did I go to school for? What did I want to do? What was my education for? And what was my plan? You have a plan, you map it out. Things don't go according to plan. So what was I going to do? Was I going to quit and say, all right, this is not going well in Los Angeles, I'm going to go home to Detroit? Love Detroit, but wasn't moving back there. I said, well, I'm going to make it work, but I'm going to make a change. I was unhappy. I want to go into business. I thought I would work the law firm till I was 30, go to work for a client, and eventually I'll start my own business. But I said, all right, this isn't working. So what do I want to do? I can go back to school, retool, get a business degree, a master's. I went to Northwestern. So I thought the only degree that was really going to help me was Harvard or Stanford. The opportunity from a resume building perspective, I would have to wait. I would have to go for 2 years, give up the income. The opportunity cost was high. And that was really the straight path. Could I find a job, the kind of job that I wanted, without going back to business school? And what I ultimately thought about was, I want to be the right-hand person to a CEO, where they were my direct boss. I would learn from them. And that was what I sought out to do. And of course, everybody would want that job. It's a hard job to get. And guess what? I've never seen a help wanted ad for that job either. So I thought, all right, well, let's think about, I have a goal. How am I going to try to solve that goal, solve for that goal? So I said, I'm going to write letters, and my letter is going to be different than every other letter that they have ever received. I thought about what did they get. And I also thought, if you write someone looking for a job, to a CEO of a big company, that's going to human resources, one, or two, is going directly in the trash. There's a form for people like this. Thank you for writing, Mr. Broad. Have a nice day or good luck to you, something like that. So I thought, let's ask people for informational job interviews where people will share their stories on how they did X, Y, and Z. It didn't say, I'm Randy Kaplan, I'm looking for a job. But I thought, all right, I need to do something else. So I wrote detailed letters. What was the detail? The detail was going on LexisNexis. There was no Google then, and searching for every article ever written on these people. So I did a search. I printed out every piece written on them, where we're looking at 5 inches of printed out material, which I would go through, I'd highlight each of those. I had a 2-bedroom apartment, which was really a letter writing factory, the 2nd bedroom. I printed everything out. I highlighted them and I incorporated every job they had had into that letter. Where some of the CEOs, one of them, the CEO of Marriott, his first job was selling ice cream at Disneyland when he was 16 years old. So when I wrote him a letter, I included that job as the first job. It took me 42 phone calls, calling his office every time the same week to get a meeting with him, Steve Bolenbach. And I called the same time every day, once a week, the same time every week. And finally, he called me back. But the letter was different. It had the research, which incorporated the job they had had. It was spiral bound with the cellophane cover. It had my transcript. I did very well at Michigan. I did very well at Northwestern. There was an article about something that I did in Michigan. I hosted part of a Michigan daily life TV show. And there was a nice piece in the Michigan Daily, but we were one and done. There was only one episode, but there was still a nice article. It showed something well-rounded about me. And so I incorporated that, and the letter was different. I got 80 meetings out of 300 letters, and every single CEO I met with said, I've never taken a cold letter like this. I just had to see who wrote the letter. So there's a lot of lessons there. The first one is, when I told people I was going to do this, Dan, every single person told me, no one is ever going to meet with you. The CEO of Disney, you think he's going to meet with you? No chance in the world. None. Marriott, every studio. I mean, people laughed at me. And lesson number 1 is trust your gut. Lesson number 2, don't tell people that you can't do something. 3, anything is possible. Do your homework, do things nobody else has done before, and be different. My letter was very different. The key to a lot of the meetings was my very persistent and consistent follow-up with these people. I didn't just say, okay, great. People will write a letter, they don't hear, they'll leave 1 or 2 messages, they'll give up. These were, I would follow up regularly. I would send follow-up letters. I would call their office. And it was very fruitful. I met a lot of people. And many of these people I met through that letter writing campaign, and that's what I call it, are now my friends and business colleagues that I have done a lot of business with throughout the years. Ultimately, Eli Broad, who sadly passed away a few months ago, became my boss. I was the assistant to the chairman at Sun America for almost 3 years. It was a phenomenal job. And if you had said to me, you're going to be 27 years old, be the right-hand person to one of only 3 people at that time who had started 2 Fortune 500 companies, after losing 2 jobs, looking for your first job or your third job, your first year from school, I think most people would have said the probability was very close to 0 or -0.
There's so many layers of this, Randy, that we could dive deep and literally spend hours and hours on each thing. I'm curious because you have 5 kids, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I have 5 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So
amazing kids. I live for my kids. I love my kids.
So as you look back on this, there's a couple things I want to ask. So one, this one main focus that you did in your 20s, what would you estimate that it's been worth to you? I'm curious. Like, I mean, and there's layers of that, right? Not just financial, right? That's the surface one. But
What you mean? What
like,
was the experience of the letter writing campaign or the meetings that I had?
yeah, and how all, I mean, if you've got many of these that are still friends today,
Yeah,
like there's layers of value, all these tangential points. There's the strategic, oh, I got this 3-year stint with the CEO of Sun America where I was basically mentored, because it's obvious to me that you're a researcher and you model things really well. And then that led to, if I'm not mistaken, then translated into Akamai getting started and some of the
yeah.
relationships there, right? And then now even into what you do today. And it's still going, it seems. Some of this is still an ongoing thing. So speak to that a little bit. I'm just so, as you're watching or listening right now, like, there's this idea that one thing, right, can lead to many things. There's the
Yeah.
direct thing that happens, but then there's all these strategic byproducts that spin out of it. And like, what if this idea, this concept, whatever business you're in, whatever world you're in, you could take some of what Randy shared with you that could be a lifetime business growth, personal growth model for you to really lean into. One activity may be this catalyst to 50%, 30% of direct value and another 60% of indirect value. So Randy, speak to that a little bit. I'm just fascinated how you would look at that.
I mean, there's so many tangents and buckets that we could talk about right now. The first one that I want to share with your viewers and listeners is people are always hiring. Mm-hmm. People are always hiring in good times and in bad times. If you're a phenomenal person, professional, and you show somebody something about you that is different and unique, I don't care if the company just laid off 20,000 people. You could be the one piece, one person that somebody says they really need. Here's an example. We have a large summer intern program. I've had it now for going on 18 years. It's grown into its own thing. We get over 1,000 applications now each year. We have around 36 interns every summer. It's a teaching internship. We just had the jump barbecue last night. People came over to my house. It was super fun. We had catered food and you threw the football around. We had an intern years ago named Payam Salahi, who did a great job for me here. He wanted to work at one of my portfolio companies. I was the chairman of the company. I'm very careful about not using influence where I can make a difference or help or hire someone myself at a portfolio company. If it's my own company, fine. I'm going to make that determination myself. But it's up to the CEO of our portfolio companies. So I talked to the CEO, Klaus Molt, and I said, hey, I have this great kid, phenomenal, great work ethic, smart, wants to work for you. And he said, we just don't have a need for someone like that. He's a generalist. We want tech people. I said, well, it's really valuable to have someone like him because he does all of these things. So I went back to Payam and I said, sorry, no go. So he knew that we were looking for a CTO, Chief Technology Officer. And what he did is he went on himself and found CTOs at other relevant companies. And he prepared a 42-page PowerPoint presentation that listed, was basically candidates that we should reach out to with their photos and then their resumes side by side. And then he ranked the people who he thought we should reach out to first. You can't teach that. Okay. Right. You just can't teach that. That's the first thing he did. And he didn't stop there. We were in the process, we had built a rudimentary website and it wasn't very good. And he heard me on a phone call with Klaus, our CEO and founder, said, hey, we really need to make the website better. In one weekend, he taught himself how to code. And when he sent this PowerPoint, he also sent a link. I heard you talking about redesigning this website, and he gave us a link to a brand new website that he had built. You can't teach that. So people are always looking for great people. I can go on and on and on about people we've hired and things that I have done in order to get in the door. Sun America wasn't hiring for the assistant to the chairman position. It was actually open. No one really knew about it, but I had done research. When I went in there for that job interview, I was the most prepared person that he had ever met in his life who walked into a meeting with him looking for a job. It was informational interview, but it was really, let's call it what it was. I was looking for a job. My goal was to get there and impress the person I was meeting with and blow them out of their chair. And I did. I mean, I studied for this like it was a final exam. I studied for weeks and weeks and weeks. I read the 10K, it was a public company, 10K, 10Q. I went in there, I memorized 20 questions before I went in, not softball. So what were you like when you were a child? Did you ever do this? Or do you like working here? Never ask those questions. Those are ridiculous. I went through the financial statements and the footnotes, and I asked questions about things that when I read them the first time, I didn't even know what they were talking about. Depreciation, write-offs, pooling of interest, all kinds of things that affected the financial statements in a detailed way related to mergers or things that they were working on. It's different. And I memorized these questions. When he told me about the job, the assistant to the chairman, if I knew about the job, I said, yes, this was the first person who had it. This is the second person. This is the third, fourth, and fifth. This is what they're all doing with their lives. And you could just see him craning his neck as I was doing this over and over and over again. When the pen started moving on his note card, the pen moving was the good sign, and the pen kept moving. It kept going, and I'll share the details with you. I mean, we could talk about this for 1 hour. The short of it was, we had a 90-minute meeting. I ended up working for him for 3 years. I never had a one-on-one 90-minute meeting again in my life with him. But at the end of the meeting, he said, I want you to take a class at UCLA, financial accounting, and my assistant will, if you get me a catalog, she'll get back to you. So I left his office. It was a really hot 90-degree day. Got in my car, drove to UCLA, didn't know where I was going. I double parked somewhere, ran around campus to get a catalog, got back to my car, got a ticket, went back to my apartment, wrote the thank you note, delivered the thank you note with the catalog back at Sun America in less than an hour. Do it now. Impressions matter.
Yep.
That was huge. It says something about who I was and who I am today. I follow that same model. Do it now. Respond quickly. We have a 1 hour rule here. You need to respond to all calls within 1 hour, emails within 1 hour. Do it now. Impressions matter. I didn't wait a day. I didn't wait to get the catalog. I didn't mail it. I went there, I got it, and I sent it back. And these kind of things, the intangibles, are often more important than the tangibles. Intangibles are more important than the tangibles.
I mean, there's so many lessons here, Randy, like, making yourself invaluable, right? And, the traits of being like a trail dog, right, that you describe. The idea that there's a big difference between resources and resourcefulness, right? And all of these examples that you've just shared, and then the paradigms of do it now, do it quickly, and respond quickly. As you're watching, or as you're listening right now, like, what if you just took a couple of these ideas, this 300 letter approach? But again, it's not about just 300 letters. It's the backstory of the 300 letters and the research and being resourceful and being a trail dog and making yourself stand out, being different, being unique compared to anybody else, being willing to do the little things, right? The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is doing a bit extra.
That's right.
The way most people won't do it. So I'm curious, Randy, as you as you look now in the last, I mean, you work with you've worked with high profile companies, high profile CEOs, Jump Investors, Akamai. You've been on this run, like, I've heard some people almost describe you as like, he's got the golden Midas touch or some version of that, right?
Well,
And
that you're only as good as your last deal, and in the venture capital business, you fail 70 to 80% of the time. Think about that. 70 to 80% of your deals go to zero, and you certainly don't feel like you have the golden touch when that happens. And we fall flat on our face many times. It doesn't feel good, but you learn something every single time that you do it. So I don't think I have the golden touch. I think work very hard, do a lot of research, and some deals work out pretty good, is what I would say.
Yes.
That's
now,
how I would
by
put
the way,
it.
speaking of this, because
Yeah.
I want to put context to this, as you're listening right now, or you're watching, well, of course, Randy's had success. Just listen to him, and he's got a different way of thinking. So Randy, as you brought up the failure rate, 70, 80%. Can you think to a time in the last, handful of years, to maybe a big mistake or a big failure or misjudgment, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's your biggest mistake or biggest failure or misjudgment in the last few years. What was it? Just so people can, like, not just hear about the 70 to 8, but like, what is one of you would consider one of your biggest mistakes or failures in the last few years?
Yeah.
What was that? And then what did you do and how did you learn from it that ideally our viewers and listeners could learn from too?
Sure. I'll describe the situation generically, but we invested in a company in 2014 that was a consumer product company. They sold generic medicine you keep in a credit-sized pouch in your wallet, generic aspirin, Tylenol, Tums, Pepto, those kind of things. And it's a convenience product that was 20 micron particle size, so it dissolves sublingually 3 to 4 times faster than a pill. The CEO we backed was very eager to have me as a lead, and it's some part a partner. I became the lead investor, board member, the chairman. We rounded out the investor group with many people I know. We had CEOs of very large company. I think there were 7 or 8 billionaires in the company, Fortune 500 people. We had a tremendous board of leaders in the CPG business. And once we raised a large amount of capital, somebody in that business who had sold a $2.2 billion company as the CEO and chairman of that company became the chairman of this company. And ultimately, the CEO became somebody who became difficult to work with, and had raised money with a lot of projections that simply didn't bear fruit. And we had close board seat there. I was on the board. We had 5 people on the board, all very sophisticated, very bright people with a large amount of their own capital in that business. And the company, after raising a large round of capital, $20 million round of capital, missed projections badly. And it caused a lot of people to be angry. We ultimately lost 99% of our capital in that deal. And you look at a deal like that, what went wrong there? Somebody sued the CEO of that company for fraud, didn't sue the board. I mean, there was nothing to sue. We had a lot of our own money in that deal, and we put our own money into that last round. So we saw the projections. We shared those projections with people. Of course, we tested the projections. We had the sales guy come in and run the projection by him. What went wrong there? So what went wrong is, you when your gut tells you something about someone, you should really listen to it. And CEO was an impressive guy, could sell you oceanfront property in Utah. But at the end of the day, there were a couple of warning signs. His treatment of people, the way he looked at things, the way he blamed people for problems that were his and he didn't take responsibility for. There were a couple of things looking back that I thought I really should have listened more to my gut. We should have really delved into these things. There was nothing black and white that he had done. There was nothing, but there were a few things looking back that gave me a little pause, gave the board pause, frankly. But no one's perfect either. So you start to say, we all have flaws. I have flaws. The people we work with have flaws. The CEO has flaws. No one's perfect. But in looking back, there were a couple of things in that deal, in that company, with respect to the individual and the founder, where things didn't look right. And he was sued for fraud. There was nothing fraudulent that he did, black and white. We would have known, we were there. We looked at all the companies, but people will sue for whatever they want to sue for. The fraud statute in Colorado was very low, and the company had insurance. So that was the nature of the claim. And ultimately, they sued him personally. And I know there was some kind of a settlement there. And of course, not surprisingly, that CEO and founder blamed his board for the failure of the company. And what's interesting there, it's we funded a lot of people who have lost money for us in prior deals. The fact you're losing money for us, or we've lost money, 100% of our money, that's okay. That happens. That's the nature of the business. Okay, you want to see how someone acts when things don't go well.
Yep.
When things go well, everyone loves a winner. But in many cases, the CEOs that we funded that didn't work went down with the ship, right? They did every last thing. They didn't take a salary. They did all these things, and they never blamed someone else. In this situation, not surprisingly, this individual blamed the investors, none of whom would ever talk to this person again, or be part of a company that he ran again. So you learn a lot by funding different people. You asked me, is there, a mistake in the past that you can think about that you would have done differently? You put that on the list of things. Okay. There were questions about this person's personality that came up. As the funding rounds came up, he was very focused on himself and the salary, and I was negotiating with the board with the salary. He wanted more stock. It was just thing after thing after thing, and little things here and there. Okay, that one. But after you're working there 3 or 4 years, or working with him 3 or 4 years, it becomes too much. And so looking back, would I have done things differently? I think what I would have done differently is I would have maybe paused a bit and said, all right, I'm seeing things that give me a little pause. Let's explore this a little bit more. Let's not let the freight train keep going. Let's stop for a second and take a time out and say, all right, I have a little bit of pause on this. Let's look into this. Let's talk to the other board members, which we did, by the way, but the investors, and have more of a sit down than keep going full speed ahead. There was so much momentum. And again, it's just hard to stop. You look at all these companies today, WeWork. WeWork has the best investors, most experienced board, of one of the most in the country, and they let their CEO buy a $65 million Gulfstream 650 jet. Buy. How does this happen?
Right.
Things happen. They do. The CEO has a lot of influence and power, and you bet on a person, and you really have to ride that person going forward. Sometimes it's impossible to get rid of that person. He or she has control that you can't, or two, in the case of this company, there's no one else there to run it if they leave.
And as
So
you're
things,
listening or watching right now, right? I don't know if you're asking this, but like, wow, how can I get more, Randy, of, you know, who you are, what you stand for, all these sorts of, I mean, because there's just so much wisdom here in so many different layers as well. I know you've got a book that's come out, right? That you've been writing called Bliss. If people want to learn, first of all, you know, as you're listening or watching, you get a glimpse, you get a glance at you know, who Randy is, what he stands for. You know, you can see why he's had the results and track record that he has. And, you know, hopefully you're taking out of this, you know, some of what, you know, I've got about 4.5 pages of notes here: relationships, relationship capital, resourcefulness, standing out, being different, doing what you say you're going to do, right? Be okay with checking in now and then with your gut, right? Go with your gut. Also, and if things don't go well, because everybody can be great, anybody can be a sunny day kind of person when things are great. But how do you act? How do the people that you might surround yourself act in adversity? Can learn usually more about someone's true character in about 5 minutes of adversity than you can when everything's sunny, right?
1,000 times more.
Yes. So Randy, talk about how people can connect with you and your book, Bliss.
Sure. Well, first I'll talk about my book, Bliss, which is a collection of drone beach photographs from around the world. I'll tell you how I got into drone photography, but this is available on Amazon and 10,000 bookstores around the world.
All right, I got to stop you there because of all the beach scenes there. You're called Mr. Beach. How did you get like this name of credibility called Mr. Beach?
Sure. Well, the company I've been working on for the last 7 years is called Sandy, and I'm a beach lover. The fun thing about this company is most people love to go to the beach. I think our data shows 99.5 or 6% of people in the world love to go to the beach, and there's no beach resource that is a comprehensive list and database for every beach. So we started Sandy 7 years ago with the premise that we want to create the most information, the best, most complete and thorough beach resource in the world. And we've done that by cataloging 94 categories of information for every beach in the world, more than 70,000 beaches in 212 countries. We spent 110,000 hours on this so far. And essentially, we're creating a Yelp for beaches for the billion people a year who go to the beach. The beach tourism market is a small niche. It's only a $5 trillion a year business. And we're creating a resource for people to use. We allow people to sort and filter through the categories so they can find the perfect beach for them. Our trademark is Choose Your Beach. That's one revenue model. The other revenue model is government tourist boards in beach locations don't know information about their beaches. I've met with 14 tourist ministers around the world in countries where beach tourism is the most important or one of the most importance of GDP in those regions. And the first question that I ask is, how many beaches do you have? And their response is 100% verbatim the same every time. I have no idea. So our model is going to be to license our data to the government tourist boards. More data leads to more tourists, leads to more revenue. And so over the last 7 years, I've become the world's foremost beach expert. I know more about beaches than anybody else in the world. And that's how I became known as Mr. Beach.
Mr. Beach. And I'd encourage you, as you're listening or watching right now, if you love the beach, go get the book, Bliss, #1. And then Randy, how can people connect with you to learn more about all the fascinating things you're involved in?
Sure. Well, first, our company is called Sandy.com, SANDEE.com. And go there, check it out. Let us know what you think. upload your photos. We want a lot of user engagement there. And we definitely want to get the word out on sandy.com. I have a podcast coming out, as you mentioned, called In Search of Excellence. It comes out August 6th. It's about our desire to be the best we can be and reach our highest potential, to overcome the challenges we all face, to do the impossible, to accomplish the impossible, and how to get there. And we're going to go through stories of guests who have had incredible success in a variety of different fields and hear their stories and how they got there. And it's going to be great. We're launching with Sam Zell, Tim Draper, Sharon Stone, Brad Keywell. We have a whole host of other great people, including Cliff Kingsbury, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Doc Rivers, the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and lots of other good people who we'll be letting you know about more in the next week or two ahead. So that'll be a great source to learn more about my views on the world and how I think about things, and how my guests also have had very different paths on how to get to whatever they're doing in life as well.
So I want to encourage you, go to sandy.com. That's sandy.com. Check out Randy's podcast at In Search of Excellence. That's In Search of Excellence. Go get the book. Randy, as we're winding this down, I mean, I'm sure you hear this all the time. I wish I had more time to go through. So there's so many tangents and layers that I'd love to dive into. What's something I should have asked you that we didn't get a chance to cover?
What's the thing you're most proud of in your career?
What's the thing you're most proud of in your career?
I think the philanthropy I've done is the most impactful. I love trying to make a difference in people's lives. And when I do, through my work and my team's work and my colleagues' work, that's meaningful to me. At age 27, I started an event called the Justice Ball for a nonprofit called Bet Zedek Legal Service. It's a nonprofit law firm that helps 12,000 people in Los Angeles per year, poor silk, the elderly and the homeless, get free legal aid. And the prevailing thought was at the time, 27-year-olds don't start charity events. They certainly didn't back then. There was no social media to get everyone together, no group meets, nothing like that. And everyone told me that couldn't be done, but we did it. I picked 27 or 28 people to be on my planning committee, including a gentleman named Doug Emhoff, who's the second gentleman, was on the planning committee, and then he became a co-chair as we progressed with the event. The event's now, I think, in year 27. I ran it for the first 10 years, but it's really made an impact on the amount of money they've raised for this nonprofit law firm. And it's made a big impact too on getting people involved with the organization, for them to use their sweat equity and volunteer strength to bring in more people and more money as well. Kind of the tree keeps giving as the tree gets bigger. So that's been a source of great pride for me. And then I started an event called the Imagine Ball with my friend John Terzian a few years ago that benefits the homeless, keeping families together, one family at a time. That's been a source of tremendous fun for me, watching these families get out of homelessness, making a difference, their kids being the first one in their families to go to college, not living on the streets, not becoming a drug addict or in jail, but actually getting out, getting a college degree and changing their path of them and their families forever. I endowed a scholarship at the University of Michigan. It's a full ride for someone interested in business. And then I endowed a foster care scholarship in the name of my grandmother, who was raised in foster care. And that's just been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. The student that received that, her name is Cherish Thomas. She was homeless, living in her car in East Lansing, Michigan when she was 17 years old. She applied for the scholarship, got the call. It was amazing. She was tearful. Nothing good had ever happened to her. She just about hung up on me. Didn't believe it was true. And here we are, today. She's a homeowner, a mother, a social worker, public speaker, motivational speaker, and a member of our family. And she comes to every single function. Our kids are babies, are friends, and it's super fun. And let me say something about that too. Don't tell anyone, don't let people tell you you can't do something. Even in the philanthropy world, I came to the University of Michigan. I said, I want to do this as a surprise for my grandmother, foster care. They said, it's not possible. Why isn't it possible? Because foster kids don't self-identify when they apply to Michigan or colleges. And two, they can't afford the $100 fee to apply. I said, all right, well, you're going to waive the fee. And second of all, let me figure out how to fix that first problem. I had to think about it. And the fix wasn't that complicated. I went on Google and I searched foster care agencies in the state of Michigan. And there were two. So I called the head up. I told them what they wanted to do. They were ecstatic. I said, will you give me the list? They said, no, they can't due to privacy letters. I said, all right, here's the scholarship I'm doing. You send them out. So they sent out 4,000 letters. And Cherish applied. And she got in. And again, there's a solution to almost every problem. This was a simple one, and 4,000 letters led to an amazing change forever in Cherish's life and her family's life, their kids' life, and everyone who's going to follow in her family. But it also is a model for different people to figure out ways to whatever you want to do. There's always a way. Be creative, think differently, and make it happen.
That's amazing. He's Randy Kaplan. I encourage you, go check out what he's doing. All the links to everything that we've covered today, you can come back to this episode at growthtofreedom.com/333. That's growthtofreedom.com/333. Go check out sandy.com. Check out his podcast, In Search of Excellence. If you want to check out some of the philanthropy work that he's a part of, look up Justice Ball, Imagine Ball, and a whole lot more. Again, all of the notes will be in the episode at growthtofreedom.com/333. One last thing, Randy, you just made me think of related to some of the things you're proud of. We've talked a little about your 5 kids. You've been married for a minute. You've got 5 kids.
Yeah.
Believe your wife's name is Madison?
Yeah, my wife's name is Madison.
It's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's probably not easy being a creative type, right? So as you're listening or watching, you might be saying, how does someone like Randy go out and navigate all this stuff personal? Because there's this old false limiting belief that says I've got to give up everything to go get what I want. And as I've looked into Randy's world, it seems, and not as the front stage isn't always as the backstage seems sometimes, but I'd love to get your viewpoint on it, Randy, because right now we're in a time, in a place in the world where burnout, mental health, all types of these things are a really, really important topic. We're coming off the backside of COVID-19, and we might be heading into some other variations of this that carry forward. Maybe some experts are predicting even with some permanence to it, which creates a lot of uncertainty, a lot of burnout, a lot of mental distress.
Yeah.
As you think about your career and your wife, like if you were going to turn to your wife, Madison, today, and you're going to say, thank you, honey, what would you thank Madison for how she's shown up for you to allow you to be your best self as this creative entrepreneur?
I have the most amazing wife in the world. She's very supportive of everything I do. She's supportive of, she's my second wife. I'm remarried. We've been together now for nearly 10 years. She's supportive of really whatever I need to do on the business side. She knows I put my family first, no matter what. I always have, and I always will. She encourages me. I said this in my book. Thank you for supporting me. no matter how crazy the idea is, and there are many of them. And she's just a phenomenal mom. She takes care of I have 5 kids. We have 2 kids together. She's an amazing mom. She's there. I mean, she's not the type of mom that has a nanny or a caretaker take care of the kids. She's nurturing and very giving. She's very unselfish. And what I would say to her is just thank you for being first and foremost my best friend, my most loyal friend, kind of person that I can go to and for the honest feedback. And I always want to be a better person. She makes me a better person. And I want to thank her, and I have, and I've said this to her, but I'll say it publicly now, for being an amazing mom to our kids. She couldn't possibly be a better mom. And from a support perspective, she knows how hard I work. She sees it. And I'll come home from dinner. I never miss a dinner with my kids, no matter what, ever. And I'll come home from work. We'll eat dinner as a family, help put the kids to bed, read them their books, and then we'll spend some time together. When she goes to bed, I'm back down in my office, and I managed to fit in what I want to fit in. I mean, at this point in my life, I'm still working very, very long hours. I'm excited by Sandy. We're raising some money right now, really for the first time, and things are moving. So I'm lucky to have a partner who supports me and allows me to do what I want to do. And like me, has the same family values with respect to my kids, our kids, our 5 kids. I mean, I'm just very, very blessed.
He's Randy Kaplan, and you get a glimpse at the personal side and the values and the character and the structure, and I hope that you take something away from that, in addition to all the incredible business wisdom that Randy has shared today. I encourage you, go check out what he's got going on at sandy.com. That's sandy.com. Go check out his podcast, In Search of Excellence. You want to learn more about the philanthropy work, go to Justice Ball, Imagine Ball, look that up. Again, all the links to everything we talked about will be in the show notes. You can come back to this episode at growthtofreedom.com/333. That's growthtofreedom.com/333. Randy, it's been a pleasure. Yeah. It's been an honor to have you with us today, man. And I look forward to this impacting a lot of our listeners and viewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm honored to have been here and look forward to talking again very soon. Thank you.
And I encourage you, take action with what Randy has shared with you today, right? He shared multiple insights and ways to be thinking creatively, think outside the box, go with your gut. He shared strategies of how to deal with some adversity, how to even assess adversity, how to even go with your gut on, pause, checking in. He's talked about some family values, family first, how you do that, even though he's in the midst of, Silicon Valley, working with billion-dollar companies, and building a great life at the same time. So I encourage you, take action with what he shared. Again, come back to this episode at growthtofreedom.com/333. That's growthtofreedom.com/333. Seize the day, make it a great week. We'll see you next time on growthtofreedom.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of growthtofreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day, or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com.